Hello and welcome back to macroeconomics. We're in our final unit. A few more video lectures to give you, and then we'll be done. Let's move on, talking about international trade. Today we're going to talk about advantage, comparative advantage, and absolute advantage. So the first question I have for you is, why do people trade? And I think most everyone knows, if you assume that you didn't trade, what would you have to give up? So of all the things that you have or you want to aspire to have, what would you have to give up? And you're basically going to give up everything you cannot produce yourself, right? Because if you just made everything yourself, you really wouldn't have a lot of things, right? I know I wouldn't. I don't know if I can make anything really. Food, but then I'd have to make, right? I'd have to ground down the flour and make the sugar and produce the oils and butcher the meat, et cetera, et cetera. It'd be a pain in the butt, right? So the point is, everyone specializes in the production of something and then trades it to others. Now, we purchase that traded goods with currency, right? But we know, intuitively, we know that specialization works best if somebody else who's better at it performs that service or provides that good. Okay, so the United States has free trade between states, right? The U.S. has benefited from this type of trade. So if you look historically, right, when we first started our country, most states kind of wanted to be their own sovereign nation. We had the Articles of Confederation. That didn't really work, and then we went to this federal system in which we had the strong central government and then state governments. And one of the main things that Congress does is maintain trade. And one of the main things that we did was free trade among everyone. And that's what the nice thing about the United States. Everybody can move freely. Everybody has the same laws. Everyone speaks the same language. For the most part, right? I've lived in several places in the country. Sometimes that's not exactly true. Everybody has the same customs, pretty much, right? Same culture, et cetera, et cetera. You're American, you're American. Whether you live in Washington, Florida, Maine, or Southern California, you're still American. And this has benefited the United States tremendously, and you, if you are living in the U.S., tremendously. That free trade, right? You're free to move. If you live in Southern California and their job opening opens up in Maine, you can travel all the way across the country and go get that job, right? There's really nothing that needs to be transferred over except for, you just change states, you get a new license plate, you buy a home, you do that, and you're done, right? Which would be very different if you were to move to, let's say, Singapore, or you were to move to Russia, or you were to move to Italy. It becomes very difficult then to do that. So I always ask students, if that has been so good for Americans to have free trade, to not have quotas and import tariffs and et cetera, it's just, have a one culture, one sovereign nation, but with 50 different non-sovereign capitals. If that works so well, would that work on a global level? Could it work on a global level? And why do we restrict trade? If that model works so well, if that free market capitalist model works so well, why are we not yelling from the towers about how great that is? Why are we restricting trade? And that would be something we would discuss in class. Can't really have a discussion right here, but it's a question that I think is interesting. And there are a lot of economists that I read that are dead set against something like that. But I always imagine I think it'd be a pretty cool world to have that. But then I become a globalist, and then a bunch of people will hate me for that. So here's each state's biggest import trading partner. All right, you can see here we have Arizona is Mexico, California, Nevada, China. When you notice Canada, a lot of people forget about Canada. They don't realize that Canada is a huge trading partner. Germany, right? Maryland and South Carolina over here. South Korea is kind of interesting, right? Alabama here is South Korea. Alabama, I know, you'd think, interesting. Saudi Arabia, of course, the oil imports and things like that. Yeah. Moving on, absolute and comparative advantage. So what the heck is that, right? Let's check that out. So we're going to look at per unit opportunity cost review. So there's our equation. There's our formula for per unit opportunity cost. And we're going to start looking at things a little differently. So assume it costs you $100 to produce 5 iPhones. So what is your per unit cost for each iPhone? Right, it's $20 per phone, okay? But let's take the money out of the equation. And instead of producing 5 phones, you could have produced 100 smartwatches, okay? So let's re-ask these questions. What is your per unit opportunity cost for each phone in terms of watches given up? Okay, so one phone costs 20 watches. Okay, we use our little equation over here. What are you giving up, right? So you're gaining phones, right? You could get 5 phones, and it's costing you 100 watches, right? 5 goes into 120 times, right? So one phone would cost you 20 watches. Well, what if we did that the other way? I'll let you figure that one out, right? So what is your per unit opportunity cost for each hat in terms of shirts given up? Pause the video and figure that out. Okay. You should have one watch cost 1/20th or 5% of a phone, right? Of a phone, right? Because your opportunity cost is what are you not doing? You're not making 5. What are you gaining, right? 100 watches, right? 100 or 5 divided by 100, right? Gives you 1. Maybe you want to put it in fraction, but in a percent usually is what we do. Okay, per unit opportunity cost. Let's look at Little Caesars and In-N-Out Burger. So In-N-Out can produce 20 pizzas or 200 burgers. Little Caesars can produce 100 pizzas or 200 burgers. And then we're going to have all these questions, right? We're going to figure out who has, what's their opportunity cost for one pizza, what's their opportunity cost for a burger, et cetera, et cetera. So we have all these questions. How do we answer these questions? Okay, so take a look at this really quick. So pause the video, just take a look at it, and then I'm going to show you a real quick math or way to figure out the math, okay? Okay, so let's take a look at how to do the math here. So what are we going to do? And I'm sorry, I'm going to draw with my mouse, so this is going to be really messed up. But let's imagine, right, we're going to draw a little square here. Wow, that is really bad. But that's what you get when you draw with a mouse. Okay, so we're going to have our little box here. And we're going to have In-N-Out, right? So we're going to put In-N-Out over here, and we're going to put Little Caesars right there. And they're going to make pizza, and they can make burgers, okay? So they can make, In-N-Out can make 20 pizzas, or they can make 200 burgers, okay? And they can make 100 pizzas, and they can make 200 burgers. So just looking at this, right, I'll let you do the math. So just looking at this, we're going to figure out what is our per unit opportunity cost. So what we want to know is, what does one pizza cost us? What does one pizza cost us? Right there. And what does one burger cost us? Okay, and so we're going to find our per unit opportunity cost. And this is for output only, right? And we're only going to do output. We're not going to do input questions. We're only going to do output questions here. So just who can make what, okay? So we're looking at who has, and if you're asking like, why are we doing this? Well, we want to know who has an absolute advantage and a comparative advantage. So absolute advantage in making pizzas, it's whoever can make the most. Little Caesars can make the most. Who has an absolute advantage in burgers? Well, they both have the same, right? There is no advantage, right? Comparative advantage is who can produce it cheaper, who can produce it with the fewest amount, right? Or giving up the least amount of the other thing. So who has the lowest per unit opportunity cost? And that's what we're trying to find here. So in order to do an output question, I'll do the first one for you, and then you can do the, right? So we're going to do this. We're going to bring the other one, we're going to bring it over here, and we're going to do 200 So we know that one pizza cost us 10 burgers. So if we were to make one pizza, it would cost us 10 burgers. Okay? And over here, we can do this, right? We bring this one over there, and we put that there, and we put 20 here. And we know that making one burger, right, would cost us, right? This is, so it goes in there, 10, 1/10, right? Would cost us 1/10 of a pizza or a slice. One burger would cost a slice, okay? If we did this, all right, the other goes over. So 200 over here and 100 over here. So we know that one pizza cost us 2 burgers, and one burger cost us, right, half a pizza or 5 slices. Okay? So now we want to know who has the comparative advantage. Who can make pizzas and burgers cheaper? Well, In-N-Out can make a pizza, it costs them 10 burgers. Little Caesars can make a pizza, it costs them 2 burgers. So who has a comparative advantage in pizza production? Who can make pizzas cheaper? Little Caesars. Yes, absolutely. All right? It doesn't cost them any. And then over here we have who can make burgers. All right? Who makes burgers cheaper? Well, McDonald's does, because one burger is a slice of pizza, whereas if Little Caesars was to make a burger, they'd have to give up half a pizza. Okay? All right. So we know that In-N-Out has a comparative advantage in burger production, so it can make burgers cheaper. Little Caesars has a comparative advantage in pizza. It can make pizzas cheaper. So, should these two companies trade? Should Mrs. Out trade with Little Caesars, make burgers and pizzas? So let's imagine right now, Little Caesars makes a pizza and they sell it to In-N-Out for 5 burgers. So does Little Caesars gain in this? Normally, if they were to make one pizza, right, what would a pizza cost? Right? What could they get for a pizza in Little Caesars land? Only 2 burgers. Right? So they're gaining 3 burgers, right? So they sell a pizza and it's going to cost 5 burgers. Well, is In-N-Out okay with that deal? One pizza in In-N-Out land would cost them 10 burgers. If they buy them from Little Caesars, it would 5. Would that be a good term of trade? Absolutely, yes. In-N-Out should take that trade, right? In fact, In-N-Out should take that trade if it's anything less than 10 burgers, right? Because it's right. Anything over 10 burgers, then In-N-Out's like, no, we'll just produce pizzas ourselves, right? And Little Caesars should charge anything more than 2 burgers, right? If they charge less than 2 burgers, then it's not a good trade, and they wouldn't take it, right? Because then they could just get 2 burgers themselves, right? Why would they make a pizza and then get a burger for it, right? That would be stupid, right? Because they could make 2 burgers themselves. So this is how we look at trade. This is how we look at absolute advantage and comparative advantage. We cannot tell if a country should trade or people should trade based on their absolute advantage, all right? We can only do that with their comparative advantage or their per unit. So here are these questions, right? We answered all of these questions by doing this little graphic right here, right? I know it's kind of messy, but this is how you answer these questions. If you have questions like this and you're like, I don't know how to do these on the homework, I don't know how to do these on the quiz or the test, just make your little diagram like this. They're always output questions, and just put the other one, right? This other number goes over, right? And then you get your per unit opportunity cost equation, which was this thing way back here, right? Right here. Whoops. In green. There we go. My pen is not allowing me to circle that. So, okay. So let's move on. There we go. One burger costs half a pizza. Mrs. Out has a comparative advantage in the production of burgers, and Little Caesars has a comparative advantage in the production of pizza. Absolute and comparative advantage. So there are the definitions of absolute advantage and comparative advantage. The most important part is that bottom down there, right? Countries should trade if they have a relatively lower opportunity cost. They should specialize in the good that is cheaper for them to produce and then trade it, just like we saw with In-N-Out and Little Caesars. Okay? If you have any questions over that, I know that was a lot in a short amount of time, please let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.